The events of that night happened some time ago, but every time I step into a dark street, I cannot help but feel that same ice-cold breath on the back of my neck. What I'm about to tell you isn't just a horror story. It is a serious warning for anyone living in the noisy, indifferent metropolises of the West. My name is Mark. I'm an analyst working in the financial heart of London. Our lives are built on numbers, coffee, and a constant, frantic rush. If you live in a major city in America or Europe, you know one thing well. Even surrounded by thousands of people, you can feel like the loneliest person on earth. It was exactly this indifference, this habit of never looking each other in the eye, that brought me to the brink of catastrophe that night. That particular Thursday I stayed late at the office. The clock had already crept past 11:30 p.m. Outside, the damp, grey autumn of London held sway. The central streets, so vibrant and crowded by day, take on a sinister, skeletal appearance at night. I headed toward the tube station as usual, only to be met with an announcement that service had been suspended due to technical faults. Frustrated, I realised I'd have to either call an expensive cab or walk 6 blocks to the night bus stop. In a moment of frugality, or perhaps fueled by that foolish sense of urban invincibility, I decided to walk. My route took me through Smith Street. During the day, it's a tourist thoroughfare. At night, it's a dimly lit labyrinth of narrow pavements. I put on my expensive noise-cancelling headphones, drowning out the world. That was my first mistake. We Westerners believe technology protects us, but in reality, it only severs our connection to the dangers of the physical world. After walking for about 10 minutes, a strange sensation washed over me. It was the feeling of a gaze fixed firmly on my back. Without stopping my music, I glanced over my shoulder. There seemed to be no one, only swaying trash bins in the wind and the flicker of a dying street lamp. I took a few more steps. This time I heard it clearly, the echo of footsteps that didn't match my own rhythm. When I stopped, they stopped. When I quickened my pace, they quickened theirs. I pulled the headphones off and shoved them into my pocket. My heart began to race. "Hello," I called out into the darkness. You only realize how weak your voice sounds when your life is at stake. There was no answer, only the distant hum of traffic and the rhythmic tap of rain. I accelerated. At the next turn, I finally saw him. He was standing on the opposite side of the road, further down. He wore a long, grime-stained grey coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his face. He didn't move. He stood there, like a statue. The most terrifying part was that he wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the path ahead of me, as if something or someone was waiting for me there. I tried to ignore him and hurried along the edge of the sidewalk. But in that moment of panic, I realized I had drifted away from the main road and into a cluster of narrow, dead-end alleys. The lights here were almost non-existent. Suddenly, another figure emerged from the shadows in front of me. This one was younger, wearing a dark hoodie. His hands were buried in his pockets, his gaze predatory. "Excuse me, sir," he said in a voice that was soft, yet chillingly calm. "Do you have the time?" It was the classic setup. I knew that the moment I pulled out my phone, he or his partner would strike. I didn't stop. "It's late. I need to get home," I muttered, trying to brush past him, but he stepped into my path, blocking me. At that moment, I heard the heavy footsteps of the man in the grey coat behind me. I was trapped between two fires. I felt deep in my gut that this wasn't just a mugging. There was a cold, ritualistic precision to their movements. "Give me your wallet and your phone," the hooded youth demanded. A small but sharp blade glinted in his hand. I knew I should defend myself, but our society trains us to comply, to give everything up and hope for mercy. However, as I felt the breath of the man behind me on my neck, I realized these men wouldn't just let me go. There was no humanity in their eyes. With all my strength, I shoved the youth in the hoodie aside and bolted through a small iron gate into the courtyard of an abandoned building. "Stop!" the one behind me barked. His voice was raspy, like someone who hadn't spoken in years. I ran through the dark courtyard, every corner feeling like a waiting grave. In those seconds, my life flashed before me. We spend so much time on useless things, social media, unnecessary purchases, fake smiles. Now, my life depended solely on how fast I could run. I found myself cornered. Ahead was a high wall. Behind were the two men. They approached slowly, like predators who knew their prey had nowhere left to go. "Why?" I screamed. "What do you want? Money? Here, take it." I threw my wallet onto the wet ground. They didn't even look at it. "We don't want your money, Mark," the man in the grey coat said. I froze. How did he know my name? "We want your attention. You pass us every day. We live on the streets. We are hungry and cold. But you and people like you choose to see us as invisible. To you, we are just dark spots in the scenery. Today, we wanted to make sure you saw us." Those words cut deeper than any blade. It was true. Every day at the tube station, I would stare at my phone to avoid looking at the homeless. I preferred not to acknowledge their pain. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Your apology is useless now," the younger one sneered. Just then, a distant police siren wailed. In London, that's a common sound, but this time it was getting closer. Perhaps someone in the neighbouring flats had heard my screams. They looked at each other. The youth hid his knife. "Lucky day for you, my invisible friend," the man in the grey coat said. "But remember, the next time you refuse to look me in the eye, I'll be back." They vanished into the shadows within seconds. I sank to the wet ground, my knees trembling uncontrollably. When the police arrived, I could barely speak. They took my statement and escorted me home, but I was changed. In the West, we live very comfortable lives. We build invisible walls to feel safe. We choose not to see the struggles of others. But that night taught me that the true horror is the indifference humans have for one another. Since that night, I never wear headphones while walking. I look every passerby in the eye. When I see someone in need, I don't turn my face away. Because I know the man in the grey coat is still out there. He's watching our indifference. If we lose our humanity, the darkness will surely swallow us whole. Life is not just about success and personal comfort. Look around, listen to people, and never let yourself be wrapped in a bubble of ignorance. The lesson of the night streets is expensive, but it is a lesson for a lifetime. Living in big cities, we have become strangers to one another. We collide with hundreds of people in the subway or the park, but we never look into their souls. The men who followed me that night may have been criminals, but the truth they spoke was the greatest wound of our society. Fear woke me up. I hope this story wakes you up too. True humanity is not about closing your eyes. It is about seeing the pain in the dark corners and choosing to acknowledge it. Every time I pass that narrow street in London, I look at the shadows on the walls differently. They aren't just shadows, they are the fragments of lives we've forgotten, abandoned, and ignored.